Okay, folks, here we are. This is the UK House Price Index for Scotland and Fife itself. This is a look for the house price index. It came out yesterday and it is right across the board out of Scotland. And we're looking at Fife as well up to the November 2023. This is the statistics that really are that important. Now, just to let you understand, we are actually streaming in portrait rather than landscape this time. So hopefully this comes out all right, and people can see it. I'd be interested to get people's feedback about this broadcast to see if it is actually better than the landscape overall. But we'll catch up with that later on. Let's do a couple of admin things. Okay, what we're going to go through is the headline statistics for the Scottish House Price Index and the Fife House Price Index by the government. That's Office of National Statistics up to the November 2023. We'll then go through the economic statement, price change, the sales volumes, the property status, buyer status, funding status, and accessing the data. Okay, let's crack on. Economic statement. Average house prices in Scotland, here we go, increased. It's a completely different one the media is telling you. Average house prices in Scotland increased 2.2%, a provisional estimate in the 12 months to November 2023. This was up 0.5% from the 12 months of October 23 and faster than the average UK house price annual house price inflation, which for the UK itself was negative 2.1. So sometimes what you're seeing in the news and what you're hearing in the news is about the English market. And the English market is generally negative, but it's not double digit negative. And overall, then the UK house price looks a negative 2.1, whereas actually Scotland on its own is 2.2 positive. In other words, increased in prices, and Fife, and I'll talk about Fife in a minute. So on a non-seasonally adjusted basis, this is the raw data. They do seasonally adjusted for timings of factors and to keep it the same every single year, so it smooths out all these different swings and roundabouts and make it up and down. To smooth it out, they actually seasonally adjust them. So this is non-seasonally adjusted. The average house price in Scotland increased by 1.1%. So even non-seasonally adjusted, at 1.1%, the Scottish prices went up between October and November 2023 compared to the decrease of 0.6 during the same period 12 months ago. So 12 months before that, it actually decreased, and now it's actually increased from month to month. On a seasonally adjusted basis, the average house prices in Scotland increased by 0.9% between October 2023 and November 2023. Now, they go on to saying, the government and the Office of National Statistics, comparing the provisional UK house price index volume estimate for September 22 with the provisional UK house price index volume estimate for 2023, the volume of transactions have decreased by 15%. In other words, now this is the lifeblood of a housing market, is the volume of transactions, because that shows us the health. That's the number of transactions actually turning over month to month and year to year. So year on year, the volume of transactions has dropped by about 15%. In other words, if it was on 10,000 just now, it would be on 8,500. So it was 10,000 a month. It would be now, we've been now selling this year 8,500 every single month. So that shows you. Now, the thing about the volume of transactions is, which is quite important, and I'll cover it now so everybody understands that, is because the 1,500 per month that's lost, if everybody spends maybe about 15 to 20,000 on their house when they first buy it for the refurbs, improvements, and carpets and decoration, and kitchens and bathrooms and heating systems and roofing or anything other than that. So they spend about 20,000 every single month. If I multiply that 1,500 by the 20,000, it comes to 30 million a month. So 30 million a month extra gets spent in the economy on a Scottish-wide basis if it's a 15% drop. So that means 30 million less every single month. Therefore, who suffers? All the self-employed businesses, all the retailers, because they rely on you buying items for the houses. And if you're buying less houses, then there's less sales in their businesses. Therefore, if they've got less sales in their businesses, potentially they might have to make cutbacks. Usually, typically, the first thing they go for, if it's non-variable, in other words, if it's labour, their whole business, if it's a service, it's usually typically jobs they'll go for. If it's based on, if it's based on material and variable stuff, in other words, whatever the job does, they have to buy materials for it. If they're not buying materials for it, really, it doesn't cost them that much. And the labour element's not that much either. So it wouldn't affect them. But if you buy things like carpets and that as well, and then you get them fitted, obviously it's a fitter to fit the carpets. Therefore, they're fitting less carpets, they're fitting less bathrooms, they're fitting less kitchens. Therefore, less labour is needed to do that. That's why the health of the property market is more important on the volume of transactions, not necessarily property prices. But property prices are good from the point of view stability keeps the banks in check as well, and keeps the liquidity of the banks right as well overall. Okay, they go on to say, it's actually in Scotland it's 15% down, and the whole of the UK is 24.2% down. So the English market is suffering a lot more in transactional numbers, but that's no surprise. That's because that's why their house prices year on year are less, or negative 2.1%. So, Office for National Statistics going to say in Scotland, detached houses showed the highest annual percentage change out of all types of properties, increasing by 5.2% in price in the 12 months to November 2023 to £359,000 on average. Terraced houses showed the lowest annual percentage change, which decreased by 0.1%, which is neither here nor there, in the 12 months to November 2023. In other words, there was no price increase, no price decrease really in the whole year from November 22 to November 23. It's an average price. So the average price of a terraced house is 162,000 in Scotland. The highest annual percentage change was in East Renfrewshire, where an average house price increased by 9.9%. Wow, still almost double digits. In the 12 months to November to 310,000. And the lowest annual percentage change was in Argyll and Bute, where the average house prices decreased by 6.7% in the 12 months to November 2023 to 188,000. As important, I have to mention this, with all other indicators on the housing market typically fluctuate from month to month. So it's important not to put too much weight on the month's set of housing price data, but it gives us a good insight overall into where the housing market is in Scotland and also is in Fife. Here's some at a glance statistics there. You can see there £194,006 is the average house price in Scotland. 2.2% is the year-on-year change, going up the way, increasing prices. The monthly change to month from October to November is 1.1% increase. And this is the index figure for Scotland from January 2015, which was 100, and now it's gone up to 143.8, which means since 2015, there's been an indexation increase of around about the 40% level in terms of that in terms of these numbers. Okay, that's roughly about a year, because 2015, we're on 2024 now, so you're almost 9 years in. So you would expect a 43.8% increase in the 9 years overall. Property prices generally double every 20 years, every 15 to 20 years. I always take that as the strong indicator, and I don't weigh too much on property prices doubling every 10 years. That wouldn't be good and healthy for an economy overall. So there's the economic statement. Let's get up some numbers and talk about the annual price change, and we can see it in a graphical form. Here it is here. So here's the annual price change according to the Office for National Statistics. Annual price change in Scotland over the last 5 years, as you can see there. In November 2019, it was 2%. It went in the boom after the COVID scenario, and then it dropped in the Liz Truss budget, and then it started to recover, and then it came back up to 2.2 again. So it's even Stevens. We're back to 2019 sort of economic indicators in terms of house prices and other indicators overall. Okay, so in Scotland, average prices, as I said, moved up by 2.2% in the 12 months to November. Annual price change locally, here's the one for us, locally, annual price change locally is probably one of the most important price changes, because it's we just want to know what's happening locally. Nobody really wants to know what's happening on a national basis, but it's a good indicator. Here's the local figures here. I can just briefly, and possibly you might not be able to see them, but you can see that Aberdeenshire 200,000 is the average price at minus 2.25, minus 2.5% decrease. And you've got Argyll and Bute, the lowest, as I said. Most of them have gone up, like City of Aberdeen, City of Dundee, Edinburgh up 4%, Glasgow up 0.8%. You have Dumfries and Galloway, which is minus 3.5%. That might change next month. 9.9%, as you say, in East Renfrewshire. Fife still up 1.3% year on year on prices. So Fife market is still resilient. If you're thinking about buying in Fife, you better still keep buying, and I'll talk about why. £174,880 is the average price in Fife. If you take 33,000 as the average salary, which is an accurate assumption, according to the Office of National Statistics, you are a 5.3 times multiplier, which is extremely good because 6 is usually what it is now. So it's more affordable to buy a house right now. However, the difference is interest rates, base rates have gone up. And let's just finish off here, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, so you've got North Ayrshire minus 1.1, Orkney Islands. Orkney Islands could be one or two transactions that makes that fundamental difference. So you need a year's worth of information to do that. And overall, down the bottom, 189,851 was the average price last year. 194 and £6 is the average price this year. 2.2% increase. Okay, let's talk about what's influencing that. So, right now, what's influencing this? Base rates have gone up. I think we're all well aware of that on the base rates. But, however, the one thing the banks have been doing lately is they've been basing all their mortgages on swap rates. Bank rates are starting to come down. Their mortgage rates are starting to get really good deals out there. There's really good deals and incentives for first-time buyers as well to get them started on the ladder, because that's what keeps the market stable. The lifeblood of the market is the first-time buyers. It is the investors, because they're at that level sort of buying as well. And that allows other people to upgrade. It allows people to downgrade at the top end to the midpoint, to the upper market, and then down to the lower quartile again overall. That's the most important thing, to keep that healthy relationship in that circle and the lifeblood of the Fife property market and the UK and Scottish property markets. Interest rates is a key factor here. Unemployment rate was announced this week at 4.2%. It's not changed, so still a lot of jobs. The one key indicator out of that is there are 1.4 million people looking for now round about 900,000 jobs which are available. There's more people per job available, so there it makes it would be a strong indicator, because it used to be the other way around. There's more supply than demand now. So therefore, it would mean that pressure on salary increases will start to ease off as a result. If there was more demand, in other words, there was more jobs available and less people to fill them, then you would see salaries going up over a period of time. But it's starting to come down. Now, it's come down lately from, I think it's 7.8 down now 6.6. But it's still more than inflation. Surprise what came in with inflation. It went from 3.9 last month to 4% this month. That makes the Bank of England probably a bit jittery on changing base rates. So I've got a funny feeling that that's not going to change anytime soon, the base rates. It's probably going to stay the same. There is a concern at the pirates are hijacking the oil tankers in the Red Sea. Could end up pushing petrol prices up, and petrol prices are what brought inflation down in the first place, and it could push energy prices back up again. So we'll have to watch for that. That's one key factor which could have a strong influence on where base rates are going and if it's going to come down, and also if swap rates change as well as a result. And the swap rates between the bank are the ones that the banks are determining now to determine what mortgage rates are going to offer to us as people on the street. So hopefully that's giving you a strong indication about where things are. It's still stable. Everything's still stable, so I wouldn't worry too much about anything. Again, as I said before, if you're thinking about buying, don't hold off, because economic certainty could mean that inflation might go up, therefore base rates might go up, Mortgage rates might go up. So what you thought you could afford on a 5-year fixed rate deal will be a lot dearer in the next 2 or 3 months. But it could swing the other way. But I always say in the long term, it smooths itself out anyway. And interest rates stay, more or less moderate over the long term. If you're buying for long term, if you're buying a house and you're getting a mortgage for the next 5 years, interest rate could go up and down within that 5 years. But if you've locked yourself in, you've got complete economic certainty about what you're going to be paying for your mortgage every single month for the next 5 years. And you could end up increasing your salary, which is usually typically expected. Salary increases on average every single year. Therefore, it's actually better off. And therefore, what's happening is your mortgage is your deficit reduction on your mortgage, because your mortgage stays the same value, if not coming down, because it's capital repayment against inflation, which erodes at that mortgage value. Therefore, and house prices go up as a result of that. Therefore, your loan to value and your equity built into your property gets a lot better, and you become your loan to value becomes stronger overall, and that allows you to get a better lending later on when you come out your 5-year fixed rate deal, because the gap between the price that you paid and the price it is now is a lot higher, but your mortgage is probably lower. Therefore, it could be a lower loan to value, and that'll give you better interest rates overall. As everything, if you don't fully understand that, please feel free to reach out to us and ask us for a bit more information or advice on it. More than happy to help. And we could even send you some other content possibly that we've done elsewhere, which explains a wee bit more clearly in a different way in terms of how we've done it. So let's look at the hotspots in Scotland. Let's get the map up and look at the hotspots in Scotland. Here we go. Right there, you can see fire in red, clearly the hotspots. Overall in the Highlands and Islands, over into the Aberdeenshire and the Aberdeenshire area, you can see there it's starting to come in. It's more a lower price in comparison to the Highlands, and then red hot is basically Perthshire. Perthshire's red hot overall. You can see Edinburgh over the water, red hot overall. You can see Fife sitting at the midpoint here, which is 150, 169, 170, 189. So it's the same colour there. So the colour coordination. So that's really average overall in the Scottish house prices. The lowest areas are coming down into, I think, if I'm going to if I'm going to correct myself on this, just let me have a wee quick look. The lowest price points are probably up by South Ayrshire, I think. Yep. Okay, I'm just looking at the West Dunbartonshire, and North Ayrshire is a low price point as well, and yeah, overall East Ayrshire. So that's where that is overall. And here, in terms of price points, that's why it's cold. That's why it's the blue colour. And as I said, Dumfries and Galloway down here as well. Reasonable price point, not overheating at all. But you can see the hotspots right through Scotland. Possibly, these are the ones to avoid if you can work remotely. Why would you want to buy an extremely higher property for exactly the same thing? That's my thoughts on that. Okay, so let's look now at the average price change per property. Now, I touched on that at the beginning, average price per property, and how that changed. You can see it right here. So zoom in, detached, 359 this year, 341 last year, 5% difference. You can see semi-detached, 207 the average price, 202 last year, 2.2%. Terraced houses, 161 versus 161, no real change. And flats are now starting to come up in the race. 131,600 this year, 129,253, 1.8% improvement. And it's primarily, I think, we'll see what it is next month, but it's probably primarily due to the fact that flats are more affordable in maisonettes and apartments, more affordable, and they're easier to heat and they cost less to run as well, to maintain overall. And that's probably why that will start to increase, because more people go for that. Let's talk about sales volumes, because that's actually, as we talked about, the lifeblood. Here they are here, as we look right across the board. And the sales volumes, I'll just jump onto here. I'm going to zoom in and come down. Okay, so September, the sales volumes goes to September 23 versus 22. You can see in almost every area as we go down, sales volumes have dropped year on year. But overall, as we said before, in Scotland, it's only a 15% drop overall. Fife itself, 684 last year, 545 this year. Again, lifeblood of the market. So you take 684 minus 545 is 139 times 20,000 is average somebody might spend on their property. It means the Fife economy in the housing market for local business and that contractors maybe has suffered to the tune of about 3 million of a drop in income overall. But that could turn, you never know, as transactions start to pick up. We see a lot of properties coming into market now. A lot of people, and I'll explain to you, a lot of people have worked out that you need to go in the market now because this is the opportune moment for a whole flood of properties coming into the market and you end up competing against everybody else. And what happens is when more properties come into the market than buyers, the prices start to drop. Therefore, if you've got more buyers still in the market and you've got less properties in the market to compete against, the prices either stay the same or people pay a wee bit more at this point in time to get that. So that's why it's important to come on now. Forget about your roses coming out in spring and summer. It doesn't matter. It's not going to make any difference because everybody else's house is going to be exactly the same. If anybody has blooms in their garden and they've got bright sunshine in their photographs and everything like that, and it looks like all summertime, the photos are out of date, which means the property has probably been on the market for quite a while, if that's the case. Therefore, you've got to ask your question, why has it been on the market for quite a while? So there's a requirement by the Property Myths Descriptions Act to say that you have to have photographs and descriptions that reflect the current position of the property. So if you see something like that, they should really be updating them, the estate agent. Let's jump back to these numbers and let you see that. So transactional numbers, as I said, dropped. Orkney Islands, probably it's went up, but that's par for the course. Up and down swings and roundabouts for the Orkney Islands. Nothing really substantial in increases, but more decreases. 10,115 the year before, 8,382 this year. So 10,115 minus 8,382 equals 1733 times 20,000, as I said before, round about 35 million in terms of income to the Scottish economy of people buying and improving their houses as they go has been lost because the transactional numbers have dropped. Again, it's not good for business. So that's why we want transactional numbers to stay the same and have a really stable market overall, because it keeps the economy really healthy as a result of that. Okay, let's talk briefly about the sales volumes. We've done on the sales volumes. Property status. This is quite interesting. Property status, and we'll finish off in a minute. Let's go to property status. Sales volumes. Overall, let's actually look at that first. Okay, there's the sales volumes there. As you can see, if you look there, September 2019, 8,826 sold in the month of September. September 23, 8,382. So we're, as I said, we're almost back where we were because of this blip. It happened with the pandemic and then the boost and then the big huge jump in the market, the boom period to realign all the prices to where they should be according to the average income and the multiplier at 6 times your average salary. You can see 2019 and 2023 are now almost equal to a certain degree. So we're back at the 2019 period in terms of sales volumes. So we'll see a wee cutback in the number of estate agents, I think, number of transactional volumes overall, but not too much if it stays like this right now. Jumping on to property status. New builds. New builds on average cost 302,000. Existing resold properties, in other words, properties that you'll buy have been built for years, is 184,000. So there's a differential now of between a new build and an existing property of 118,000. Wow, that's a huge differential. So 118,000, and really new builds are costing a lot more because it costs a lot more to build because the building standards and regulations are a lot higher than they were when the existing properties exist today were actually built, and that's why they cost a lot more as a result of that. Okay, hence the reason why you see the council looking to buy back properties, ex-local authority flats they had before, and as council houses, they're trying to buy them back to put back into their stock because they can't afford to build because the new build costs far more than what it is to buy an existing one back. However, you've got to say to yourself, are they competing against first-time buyers? You're absolutely right. Yes, they are competing against first-time buyers. Is that fair? You decide. Let's look at property status then. So we've got property status there, and then we go on to buyer status. So first-time buyers are paying on average 153,000. Formerly owner occupiers, in other words, people upgrading, are paying 237,000 because first-time buyers generally their mortgage availability is a lot less. Once they build some equity into the property, they can end up upgrading to be a former owner occupier, which could end up buying a higher priced house overall. That's why it's important as a first-time buyer, get yourself on the property market, start to pay down your mortgage, your house will increase over time, and it'll allow you to trade up over a period of time and build equity into your property. Ultimately, your equity is always there until the day you go, or you release it somehow, or you decide to sell it and you go into rented accommodation and you just have all that money in your own pocket because you've paid off your mortgage completely and you just pay rent until the rest of your days. But that's another challenge overall, because then at what point do you run out of rent, the amount, and does it balance it off overall? That's a wealth creation show thing, I would say. Funding status. This is how people fund their property. A cash buyer generally funds it by paying 175,433 on average. A mortgage, person with a mortgage, pays a bit more, typically round about 25% to 30% more, at 202,912 for a property. That's what they pay, because mortgage and getting finance from the bank's a lot easier. It allows you to leverage yourself to get a higher value property. So technically, if you have a cash buyer offering on your property, you're potentially going to get less than what a mortgage buyer would offer you. But then there's the swings and roundabouts of the fact that which is more advantageous. A cash buyer that's ready to go can conclude a lot quicker and let you move a lot quicker with certainty, or somebody that gets a mortgage and then they have to wait to go through the mortgage and then jump all these hurdles once your property is getting sold and conveyancing, and also making sure all the valuations are right as well. So that's the trade-off you've got to do. Do you want the higher, or do you want just certainty overall? There's a midpoint in between, which is acceptable, and a win-win situation for both parties, to be honest. And that's it. Hopefully, you've got a great insight into the Scottish property market overall and the Fife property market itself. And you've got a local market you know about yourself. Please feel free to reach out. We'll maybe talk about that as well later on. And I'll maybe give some update about your local market overall in Scotland. Until next time, guys, I'm Joe Parker for Fife Properties TV. Bye-bye for now.